July 26th, 1944, 0630 hours, west of Saint-Lô, Normandy. Hauptmann Klaus Beeker of the Panzerlehr Division had fought American Shermans for 7 weeks in the Norman bocage. He knew their silhouettes, their tactics, their predictable advance through the gaps in the hedgerows where his 88mm anti-tank guns waited. His Tiger WWII No. 134 had destroyed 11 Shermans since D-Day, each kill following the same pattern. Americans channeled into killing zones, exposed as they climbed the hedgerow banks, their thin belly armor vulnerable to even a Panzerfaust. Then, in the morning mist of July 26th, Becker witnessed something that shattered every tactical assumption of armored warfare in Normandy. A Sherman emerged from the hedgerow, not through a gap, not over it, but through it. The American tank wore a set of steel tusks welded to its hull, 8 prongs fashioned from German beach obstacles, and it was literally eating through the ancient Norman earth and root barrier like some mechanical beast from the future. Dirt and vegetation exploded outward as 30 tons of American steel burst through what had been, for 8 weeks, an impenetrable fortress wall. "Mein Gott," whispered his radio operator, Hans Müller. The 19-year-old had been confident just moments before, positioned in what they'd considered perfect defensive terrain. Now his voice cracked like a child's. "They're coming through the walls." Within minutes, 3 more Shermans erupted through different sections of the hedgerow, each wearing the same strange metal teeth. Becker's carefully positioned Tiger, suddenly outflanked from 3 directions, had seconds to respond. His loader, Wilhelm Krauss, frantically tried to traverse the hand-crank turret toward the nearest threat, a process that would take a full minute. The lead Sherman's powered turret was already swinging toward them, its hydraulic traverse completing the same motion in 15 seconds. The mathematics of survival had just changed. The bocage country, which German commanders had called the graveyard of American armor, had become a highway. By noon that day, the U.S. First Army had advanced further than in the previous 7 weeks combined. Panzerlehr Division, which had entered the Battle of Normandy with 14,000 men and 190 tanks, would report that evening. "My division has been annihilated." General Fritz Bayerlein, its commander, would later tell interrogators, "The Americans had made our fortress into paper. We knew then that they possessed not just more tanks, but a different kind of war, one we could not win." The hedgerow fortress becomes a highway. For 8 weeks after D-Day, the Norman bocage had been Germany's greatest ally. These ancient hedgerows, earthen walls 6 feet high, topped with dense vegetation, roots like iron mesh holding centuries of soil, had turned every field into a fortress, every advance into a bloodbath. The statistics told a grim story. Between June 6th and July 24th, the Allies had suffered over 40,000 casualties while advancing barely 7 miles inland from some beaches. German defenders, using the hedgerows as ready-made fortifications, had turned each of Normandy's 50,000 fields into individual killing grounds. Wehrmacht training manuals called it Der Garten des Todes, the Garden of Death. A single German squad with 1 machine gun and 2 Panzerfaust anti-tank weapons could hold a hedgerow junction against an entire American company. When Shermans attempted to climb over the hedgerows, they exposed their thin belly armor at a steep angle, perfect targets for any German teenager with a magnetic mind. When they tried to push through the gaps, pre-registered 88mm guns and hidden Panthers waited. Captain James Ellis of the 2nd Armored Division recorded on July 15th, We're losing 3 Shermans for every hedgerow we take. At this rate, we'll run out of tanks before we reach Paris." The solution came not from Detroit's engineers or the War Department's tacticians, but from Sergeant Curtis Grubb Cullen III, a 29-year-old cab driver from New Jersey, serving with the 102nd Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron. On July 3rd, while his unit recovered from yet another failed hedgerow assault, Cullen had been staring at the German beach obstacles littering the Normandy countryside, thousands of steel crosses called check hedgehogs, designed to rip open landing craft. "Why don't we use their own steel against them?" Cullen asked his captain. Within hours, he had a maintenance crew welding 6-foot sections of the German obstacles to the front of a Sherman hull, creating a crude but effective set of metal tusks. The first test was performed in front of skeptical officers. The modified Sherman, instead of climbing the hedgerow and exposing its belly, lowered its tusks and drove straight into the earthen wall at full speed. The steel prongs bit into the earth, the 500-horsepower Ford engine roared, and the tank burst through the other side in a shower of dirt and roots, its armor never exposed, its gun ready to fire. General Omar Bradley, witnessing a demonstration on July 14th, immediately ordered, "I want one of these on every tank in First Army within 2 weeks." The mathematics of American industrial adaptability kicked into overdrive. Within 72 hours, First Army's ordnance units had established 4 separate production lines for what troops were calling Rhino tanks. Welding crews worked around the clock, using German steel to defeat German defenses. Arc welders sparked through the night as Sherman after Sherman received its tusks. By July 25th, the start of Operation Cobra, 3 out of every 5 First Army Shermans wore Rhino cutters. Over 500 tanks had been modified in less than 2 weeks, using nothing but salvaged enemy steel and American welding torches. German intelligence completely missed this transformation. A July 23rd report from LX-14 Corps to Army Group B stated, "Enemy armor continues to be channeled through predictable hedgerow gaps. Our anti-tank defenses remain optimal." Gefreiter, Private Ernst Hoffmann of the 2nd SS Panzer Division. Das Reich wrote in his diary on July 26th, "This morning, the impossible happened. American tanks came through the hedgerows like they weren't there. We had planned every field of fire, every killing zone, based on the gaps. Suddenly, they were everywhere, coming through the walls themselves. Our PaK-40 anti-tank gun had no time to traverse. The crew abandoned it and ran. I have never seen German soldiers run from American tanks before. The speed of tactical obsolescence was breathtaking. 8 weeks of German defensive doctrine evaporated in 8 hours. Major Hans von Luck, commanding a panzer battalion, reported to his division commander, "The Americans have transformed from predictable targets into unpredictable predators. Every hedgerow is now a potential breach point. We cannot defend 360 degrees at once." The radio revolution. If the Rhino cutter gave Shermans the ability to attack from anywhere, the SCR-508 radio suite gave them the ability to attack as one organism. Every single M4 Sherman, rolling off American production lines, came equipped with a full FM radio system, not as an afterthought or officer's privilege, but as integral to the tank as its gun. The SCR-508 or SCR-528 radio sets, with their distinctive bustle-mounted antenna, allowed instant communication between every tank in a company, coordination with infantry units, and direct contact with artillery observers and fighter bombers circling overhead. The mathematics were stark. American tank platoons could coordinate fire missions in 15 seconds. German units, still largely dependent on signal flags, hand gestures, and runners, required 2 to 3 minutes for the same tactical evolution, if they managed it at all. Technical Manual TM 9759, the Sherman's Operator Bible, devoted 40 pages to radio operation. Every crew member learned not just to operate, but to maintain their communications equipment. The powered intercom system meant that even in the heat of battle,